Despite Dan Ashworth leaving, the next phase of Newcastle's rebuild begins, and it's massive. They've got a bit of an FFP situation they need to sell, but they also need to buy. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down 4 players that Newcastle should buy this summer, who they should sell, and what their lineup could look like next season, being realistic, and also giving this from a Manchester United fan's perspective. So if you do disagree, do let me know down below. I don't watch every single game Newcastle play, but I watch quite a lot of them. And I think Lascelles has actually been quite impressive this season. Kraft, Target, and Ritchie will be ones that I assume Newcastle have already planned to sell. Even though Lascelles has been good, I think Wilson's aging a bit. I think Almiron's aging a bit. Trippier's aging a bit. I think they could be moved on. Burn could be moved on. I think Almiron will be moved on. He was linked to a move in the summer. Potentially someone like Longstaff, they might look to move on because I actually think they need to bring in a midfielder and they might move him out, especially with Lewis Miley coming through, and then potentially again Murphy is one that they can move on. They need to move on a few players. They need to move on a lot of players that I think have done a decent job for them this season, like Trippier, like Lascelles. I think Wilson is a good player just due to age and FFP, and they need to buy some players. So who should Newcastle buy? Well, first of all, what areas and positions do Newcastle need to address? For me, they need a centre-back, a DM, a right wing, and a left-back. It's not FIFA, so I'm just saying 4 positions. And the reason I've gone with left-back is I think Trippier could be moved on and he can play right back, left back. So I think Livramento goes to right back. I think Burn could be moved on, and it just seems that he doesn't really rate Lewis Hall, so I've sort of put left back in there. Although to be fair, Livramento could play left back and you could bring in a right back, but that doesn't make too much sense to me. Right wing, because I think Barnes and Gordon are just better on the left wing. DM, because I think Bruno Guimaraes is your most creative player, and I actually think if you got a proper 6 that would allow Bruno Guimaraes to go forward more, you would actually break down teams a lot more. And of course, centre back. So we're going to start with the centre back. Which centre back should Newcastle sign? Branthwaite, Silva, Tapsoba, Lenny Euro, Todibo, Diomande, Calafiora. There's a lot of decent options out there in the centre back option. I think predominantly they need a right centre back. I think Shaw's probably had a better season than Botman, but I think he's probably carrying a bit of an injury when he's playing at the moment still. I don't think he looks 100% fit, but I do think Botman is an incredible centre back. We saw that at the beginning of the season, we saw that last season. He's obviously had injury issues this season. Though I do think maybe a right-sided centre-back would be more suited. Branthwaite is left-footed but can play right centre-back and left centre-back. I think there's a lot of options there, but there's going to be a lot of competition for these options. And I'm thinking price-wise, Antonio Silva, Diomande, Lenny Euro, I don't think they'll want to spend. I don't think Newcastle want to spend more than 40 to 50 million on a centre-back. And my option is, and I think he might end up at Man United because Ratcliffe obviously has got a share in Nice, is going to be Todibo. And I was sort of looking at this, and I was looking at data and B here, and obviously it's not all about graphs and data and stats and all of that. It's about the player, but you can see that sort of Todibo has got that a bit of a mixture between Shah and Botman. You know, Botman's very good aerially, so I think Todibo's weakness aerially would work really well with Botman. But what Todibo is really good at is his progressive passes, his forward passes, defensive action, his carrying, which is better than Botman's. And I think as a pairing, Botman being a physical box defender and Todibo being a wide channel defender that can cover large spaces, that is good on the ball, I think would partner each other very well. Going in on Todibo, he's 24 years of age. He is a wide channel defender, which means he's very comfortable defending the wide spaces. If Livramento is playing right back and he pushes forward and Newcastle attack, Todibo has the ability to almost play right back. He's a little bit similar to Konate in that sense of he's someone that's very comfortable defending the wide channels, defending out wide, could pick up fullback scenarios. But because he's very quick and he's very mobile and he's got a very good reading of the game and he can cover large spaces, he's very good at defending the wide areas. He's very good at dealing with tricky wingers, even as a fullback's job, and dealing with one-on-one situations, and he can defend large spaces and against the transition. And the way that football is moving, I actually think the Premier League is becoming, stylistic-wise, a little bit more like the Bundesliga in the sense of you look at Premier League teams now, all the teams want to play this attacking football, which makes the defence more vulnerable, but they score more goals. It's the pretty football. It's not the Sean Dyche football anymore in the Premier League. And to do that, you need players that can cover large spaces, players with the ability to cover large spaces, be great ground covers, have that athleticism, are going to be so sought after in the market, which I think there's going to be competition for Todibo with him being valued at 38 million by Nice, because I think that's a baller. Not only that, but in the modern game of football, teams like to play out from the back. I think Pope's okay at playing out from the back, but I think in build up Newcastle could improve. And I think Todibo is a good ball-playing centre-back. He can break the lines. He can progress the ball via long passes, short passes, dribbles. He's very, very comfortable in possession. He's very good in possession. You look at, I'm going to compare it to Man United because I'm a Manchester United fan, but when Lisandro Martinez does not play for Manchester United, our ability to play out of the press is absolutely dreadful. Our ability to get the ball from defence to midfield, to move it quick is absolutely dreadful. When Lisandro Martinez does play for United, we're so much better. And Todibo has that ability in possession, which will just help Newcastle play through the press and move it. As I said, he's athletically good. He's got high IQ. He's got good reading of the game. He's very good in transition situations, stopping counter attacks. Only weakness would be aerial duels, but I think Botman would be a good partner for that. And if you look at him generally here in his percentiles, you can see passes attempted 96th percentile, successful take-ons 95th percentile, progressive passes 94th percentile. You can see he's so high for passing and even tackles and interceptions. Considering Nice are one of the most dominant teams in the French league, the fact that his tackle and interception percentile is so high is pretty insane, because he doesn't have, Nice do have a lot of possession. He doesn't have as much defending to do, which is why his clearances will be lower, his blocks will be lower. Nice are the dominant side in Ligue 1 at the moment. Continuing on to DM. Now, I think that Bruno Guimaraes, and I don't know if he's going to stay at Newcastle, but I think Newcastle will do anything they can to keep him. I think Bruno Guimaraes is a fantastic player now, but I think if you want to see the best out of Bruno Guimaraes, he needs to be in a pivot with someone who's a 6/8 that he can rotate with. Sometimes Bruno will drop back and drop deep, and you might have a tall physical player that pushes up, because then you can play over the top, you can play over the press, and you've got someone tall and physical to hold the ball up, and then that tall and physical player might drop back, and then Bruno Guimaraes can push up and break the lines, because I actually think Bruno Guimaraes is actually Newcastle's most creative player. So you could go for someone like Subimendi, but I think he's going to Arsenal. I think Mats Wiefer would be a very good realistic option. He's had links to Liverpool, Barcelona, few other teams, but nothing concrete. Amadou Onana could be a very good one, but I think because he's in the Premier League, he will just be put way too expensive. Fofana of Monaco, again, he's someone that's definitely a 6/8 that could rotate well with Bruno Guimaraes. Definitely plays a bit more forward, but could work. Kamara of Villa could be someone to look at in terms of a more DM option, much lower Douglas Luiz, but could be difficult. Edson Alvarez of West Ham, I think he's been unbelievable, Edson Alvarez for West Ham, but again, I think that's difficult. And Locatelli of Juventus, you've got Tonali, so it's possible, but again, I think that's difficult. If we're looking realistically, and if we're looking at who I think is actually probably arguably the best option for money on this list, we're going with Mats Wiefer. And the reason I go with Mats Wiefer, and again, it's obviously not all about stats and graphs and stuff, but I think this gives you a bit of an indication of he's something very different in terms of his defensive ability, which would give Bruno Guimaraes the license to push further up. If you look at Wiefer in pink compared to the rest of your midfielders, you can see defensive actions, duels, progressive passes. He's a lot higher in defensive sense. Ball carrying, Joel Linton just beat him a bit there, but forward passing. I think in terms of his ability to move the ball, his ability in out of possession, Mats Wiefer is going to get a big move this summer. I think he's absolutely brilliant, Mats Wiefer. Even comparing to Bruno Guimaraes there, and as I said, Bruno Guimaraes, your most great player. Look at the key passes. They look how well they sort of suit each other. He counteracts Bruno Guimaraes' sort of strengths. Bruno Guimaraes counteracts his weaknesses. They counteract each other's weaknesses. I think that would be a really, really good pairing, Bruno Guimaraes and Mats Wiefer in the Newcastle midfield. And if you look at it here, you can look at Wiefer compared to the likes of Amadou Onana and Kamara, sort of how he to be honest, and obviously he is Eredivisie statistics, which gives him an advantage, but he is very, very well rounded. So why am I a massive fan of Mats Wiefer, and why do I think he'd be really good for Newcastle? I think he'd be really good for Man United. I think he'd be really good for Tottenham. I think he'd be really good for Arsenal. I think he'd be really good for a lot of teams. I think he'd be really good for Barcelona with Frankie de Jong. But he's 6'2". I think he's basically 6'3", maybe. Some say 6'2", some say 6'3". But he's a long-legged dual winner. And when you've got those long legs, his ability to tackle something and win the ball, his legs are almost like a nightmare, because they just always get in the way. He's got big strides where he can cover so much space so easily, so quickly, and his legs just get in the way of things and intercept things. I know that's a bad way of explaining things, but that is what it's like. He's got that PMP, the athletic qualities. He's fast, he's powerful, he's strong, he's physical, he's got that pace, can cover the ground. As I said, ground coverage in the modern game of football, I think, is so important. Can control the ball well, is press resistant. I think not only is he really a really good ball winner. He's really, really good at winning back the ball, which I think is something that Newcastle will need, especially, you know, losing the ball in transition, the way the Premier League is moving. But he's also very good when he wins the ball, playing it forward quickly. I think something that's really impressed me with Endo for Liverpool, who was a player that I thought was, you know, was going to be a good player for Liverpool, but not as good as he has been, is that Endo wins back the ball, is a really good ball winner, wins those first balls, wins those second balls, plays it forward quickly. You get that in Matt Sweefer, but you get the physicality. And when you're mobile, you're athletically good, you're physically good, and you're technically good. For me, Matt Sweefer has it all. I mean, look at his percentile statistics. Yes, it is the Eredivisie, which gives him an advantage, but look how complete this guy is. Look how complete this guy is. And he could literally be like 30 to 40 million pounds. And I think he's so suited to the way Newcastle play if they keep Eddie Howe. Here are the right wing options that Newcastle should look at: Nico Williams, Elise, Bakayoko, Sule, and Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto, I think Spurs are really looking at him. Arsenal will be looking at him. I think Elise, United will be really looking at him. I think Nico Williams is going to be a lot of teams looking at them. Again, Man U, Arsenal, Spurs, Newcastle, potentially if Salah leaves, Liverpool, a lot of teams are going to be looking at a right wing, and it's going to be difficult. Now, I narrowed it down to Elise, Bakayoko, and Nico Williams. But I think with Elise and Neto, they've just got those injury risk, and I think Newcastle after this season wants someone that doesn't have that injury risk. I think Bakayoko's good, but if you're signing Matt Sweefer from the Eredivisie, do you want to sign another player from the Eredivisie and take that risk? I mean, West Ham did it with Kudus and Edson Alvarez, and it worked out fine. So you can say that's a useless point. And then Nico Williams, you know, he can play left wing and right wing, which is why I've gone with Nico Williams, because not only has he got a good injury record, but he can play left wing because he can play right wing. And it's not just about his stats, but, you know, they talk about Hazard being the eye test and Salah being the stats. You know, that sort of debate in football, Hazard or Salah. Nico Williams got both. His stats are all right, but he's very good on the eye. Only second to Vinicius Jr. for dribbles, progressive runs, and attacking actions in La Liga this season. And considering that Bilbao aren't as attacking as Real Madrid, they're very, very good stats. With 17 goal contributions in 1,888 minutes. That's nearly a goal contribution a game, with 11 assists. Someone that creates a lot, but also has a goal in him. He's got good ball striking ability. If you look at Nico Williams, he's a two-way winger. He can go inside or out. And what I mean by that is he's very good at either like darting down and then rushing and then going down the byline and putting across, or, you know, inverting and putting a shot in and scoring. He's really good in 1v1 CRs. He's rapid. He loves to attack. He loves to get forward. He loves to progress the ball, putting across, go down the byline, have a shot. One of the best 1v1 wingers. His pace makes him great in transition, but also he's just got a good injury record, a 43 minute release course reportedly. Very good at progressing the ball, very direct, loves to go forward and works incredibly hard, which I think is something Newcastle will need. And if you look at his statistics here, as you can see, progressive carries, take-ons, progressive passes reported in the higher things. Obviously, other statistics are lower, but that's just because of the team he plays for can influence it. Now, left back is the most difficult position because you've got to look at funds. Let's say Nico Williams and Matt Sweefer is 80 million and Todibo takes 220 million. I think that's decent, and I think you've got to look at funds. I don't think the left back market is amazing out there. You're probably looking at some of these options thinking, what the hell? But the way I look at it is, you know, Hull got relegated and you know, Robertson was basically going to the Championship and he went to Liverpool and became one of the best left backs. I think someone like Conor Bradley, potentially with a new manager coming in and Trent and Robert being fit and Trent's going to be the guaranteed right back, as good as Conor Bradley's been, could Liverpool be open to cashing in? I think Liverpool should keep Conor Bradley. I think he's amazing, but if he's available, I think Newcastle should look at that. Anthony Robinson of Fulham, I think, is really underrated. Estupiñán, I think Anthony Robinson's better than Estupiñán. He's better than Rico Henry. I think he's better than Alfred Doughty, to be honest. But you see there's a lot of Premier League left backs here. You could even go for Gramado of Leverkusen, but don't know if that 100% suits you. I've gone with Robinson of Fulham. I think he's very underrated. People will be looking at this and laughing, but you've got to be realistic. It's Newcastle, you've got to look at the money, you've got to look at FFP, you've got to be realistic. And you've also got to say, you know, Liverpool signed Endo because they couldn't get Casado, couldn't get Lavia. Everyone laughed at Liverpool for signing Endo, this cheap player. Endo's done a shift for Liverpool this season. You know, you might want to focus on other areas at Newcastle, and Anthony Robinson could be that 15 million player that does a shift for you that season, that does a shift 1 or 2 seasons, then you look for a longer term left back. I think his athleticism is really good. I think he works incredibly hard, which is something that Newcastle value highly. I think he's really underrated in general. I think he could be a really good squad player. I think he's got the most interceptions in the league this season. He reads the game very well. He's very defensively aware, and he's also a good ball carrier. He's fast, he's physical. It's very difficult to be one-on-one, and he's got a decent cross in him. I think he's incredibly underrated. So that is my video on 4 signings I bring to Newcastle to rebuild Newcastle, and that would be a potential starting 11 looking at this next season if they move on potentially a lot of their older players and they use that to invest in this. And I do think if they're not in Europe next season, I think they can definitely get in the Conference League and potentially even Europa League. I do think if this was playing one game a week, that lineup could cause big problems if they can stay fit, because I actually think Newcastle have got a really good team, some really good players, but you just can't stay fit, and that is your problem. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.